I just want to say thank you for clicking on this video. This new thing that I'm trying out while I'm live streaming, but I am recording and uploading videos later so people can watch them later, is I want to start reading books, old books, occult books, hidden knowledge books, historical books, scriptorial books. And the book that I decided to start this journey on with is The History of Magic. In this video, we do go over and read the first 2 chapters of this book, and they are quite compelling. I hope you enjoy this type of stuff. If you do, make sure you hit the like button. I'd love for you to introduce yourself in the comments if you're new to this journey, because this is video 1 of books with Trip. I don't know what to call it. I don't know. We're just reading books, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate you. So let's get right into this. All right, book 1. Let's bring this in close for everybody to be able to see. The apocryphal book of Enoch says that there were angels who consented to fall from heaven that they might have intercourse with the daughters of earth. For in those days the sons of men having multiplied, there were born to them daughters of great beauty, and that the angels or sons of heaven beheld them, and they were filled with desire. Wherefore they said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the race of man, and let us beget children. Their leader, Samyasa, answered thereupon and said, Perchance you would be wanting in the courage needed to fulfill this resolution, and then I alone shall be answerable for your fall. But they swore that they would in no wise repent, and that they would achieve their whole design. Now there were 200 who descended on Mount Armon, and it was from this time that the mountain received its designation, which signifies the Mount of Oath. Hereinafter follow the names of those angelic leaders who descended with this object: Samyasa, chief among all, Ur-Ka-Ba-Ramel, Azabil, Tamiel, Ramiel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Serachiel, Asriel, Armers, Batriel, Anan, Zavabi, Samsavil, Etriel, Turil, Jomiel, Erizal. They took wives with whom they had intercourse, to whom also they taught magic, the art of enchantment, and the diverse properties of roots and trees. Interesting. Amazarak gave instruction in all secrets of sorcerers. Barkiel was the master of those who studied the stars. Akabel manifested signs, and Azradel taught the motions of the moon. The legend of the Kabbalistic Book of Enoch is a variant account of the same profanation of mysteries which we meet under another form of symbolism. In the history of the sin of Adam, those angels, the sons of God, whom Enoch speaks, were initiates of magic, and it was that they communicated to profane men, using incautious women as their instruments. They split upon the rock of sense attraction, becoming enamored of the female sex, and the secrets of royalty and priesthood were extracted from them unawares. Primitive civilization collapsed as a consequence, and the giants, who typified brute force and unbridled appetite, fought together for the world, which escaped only by immersion in the water of the deluge, wherein all traces of the past were effaced. This deluge symbolized the universal confusion into which humanity is brought of necessary when it ignores and does outrage to the harmonies of nature. There is kinship between the fall, the magic head of Zohar. There is kinship between the fall of Samyasa. Hey, I just want to say I appreciate you clicking on my video. If you could, please, if you like videos like this, just make sure you hit the subscribe button. And because you clicked on the first 2 chapters of The History of Magic written in 1913, please make sure you comment any books that you potentially want to read with me together on camera. I love you. Let's get back to the book. And of that of Adam, the lure of sense seduced both. Both profaned the tree of knowledge, and both were driven far away from the tree of life. It is needless here to discuss the views, or rather the simplicity, of those who take everything literally and believe that knowledge and life were once manifested under the form of trees. Let us confess rather only to the deep meaning of sacred symbols. The tree of knowledge the tree of knowledge does actually inflict death when its fruit is eaten. That fruit is the adornment of this world. Those golden apples are the glitter of earth. Interesting. Interesting. Weird. It's weird, right? Symbols everywhere. The tree of life. Remember, if you were here when we watched freaking Bible Unveiled Part 2 and they were talking about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and the separation of those inside of the Garden of Eden, the shit gets kind of crazy, you know? Zohar, you're right. The name of the carnival machine in freaking the movie Big. I'm fucking that old, player. Big. With Tom Hanks. You all remember that movie? In the Arsenal Library, there is a very cautious manuscript entitled The Book of the Penance of Adam, and herein Kabbalistic tradition is presented under the guise of legend to the following effect. Adam had two sons, Cain, who signifies brute force, and Abel, the type of intelligence and mildness. Agreement was impossible between them. They perished at each other's hands, and their inheritance passed to the third son named Seth. Here is the conflict of two opposing forces diverted to the advantage of a synthetic and united force. Now Seth, who was permitted to approach as far as the entrance of the earthly paradise without being threatened by the cherub and his flaming sword. Weird, bro. Remember the cherubim, the cherub and his flaming sword outside of the Garden of Eden. In other words, Seth represented primeval intuition. Initiation? Yeah, initiation. Seth represented primeval initiation. It came to pass in this manner that Seth beheld the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, incorporated together after such a manner that they formed a single tree, signifying the harmony of science and religion in the transcendental Kabbalah. What the shit, boy? Poop emojis in the chat, boy. Poop emojis. And the angel gave him 3 seeds containing the vital power of the seed tree. The reference is here to the Kabbalistic triad. When Adam died, Seth, in obedience to the directions of the angels, placed 3 seeds in the mouth of his father as a token of eternal life. The saplings which sprang from these became the burning bush, in the midst of which God communicated to Moses his eternal name. What? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Seth, the son, planted seeds inside of Adam's mouth when Adam died, and those seeds turned into the acacia bush. The acacia bush, you know, it has DMT inside of it. That bush burned, didn't it? Well, what if that bush burned and Moses inhaled DMT? Weird. Moses plucked a triple branch of the sacred bush and used it as his miraculous wand. Okay, now this is where shit starts to get fucked up. You're telling me Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. Obviously, Cain killed Abel, and then Cain was outcast and went and built the first civilization, actually. But they had another son named Seth. And then this son named Seth, when Adam died, planted 3 seeds inside of his mouth. Those seeds then grew into the burning bush, which then Moses took a branch off of that bush and created a wand, a miraculous wand. So the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and another seed that grew a bush out of Adam's body was also the burning bush for Moses, what was also Adam's wand. Although separated from its root, the branch continued to live and blossom, and it was subsequently preserved in the ark. Like Noah's ark. King David planted the branch on Mount Zion, and Solomon took wood from each section of the triple trunk to make the 2 pillars, Jachin and Boaz. Interesting. There's the Freemasonic stuff, right? Which were placed at the entrance of Solomon's temple. They were covered with bronze, and the 3rd section was inserted at the threshold of the chief gate. It was a talisman which hindered things unclean from entering within, but certain nefarious Levites removed during the night this obstacle to their unholy freedom and cast it, loaded with stones, at the bottom of the temple reservoir. From this time forward, an angel of God troubled the waters of the pool, imparting to them a miraculous value, so that men might be distracted from seeking the tree of Solomon in its depths. In the days of Jesus Christ, the pool was cleansed, and the Jews, finding the beam of wood, which in their eyes seemed useless, carried later outside the town and threw it across the brook Cedron. It was over this bridge that our Savior passed after his arrest at night in the Garden of Eden, or the Garden of Olives, excuse me. His executioners cast him from it into the water, and then in their haste to prepare the instrument in chief of his passion, they took the beam with them, which that was made of 3 kinds of wood, and formed the cross. What? You're telling me? You're fucking telling me, bro, that this same wood that made Moses's wand, that came from the burning bush, that grew out of Adam's body, was the same exact wood that they put Jesus on when they put him on the cross. The cross was made out of this wood? That seems fucking kind of mind-blowing, actually. What the fuck? Jeez Louise, bro. This allegory embodies all of the great traditions of the Kabbalah and the secret Christian doctrine of St. John, which is now utterly unknown. It follows that Seth, Moses, David, Solomon, and Christ obtained from the same Kabbalistic tree their royal scepters and pontifical crooks. We can understand in this matter why the Christ was adorned in his manger by the Magi. I'm telling you, seems pretty insane. Magi, magician, right? We all can acknowledge that wizards showed up to Jesus' birth. That's what Magoi is, magi. Let us recur, however, to the book of Enoch, as greater authority attaches to it than can be attributed to an unknown manuscript. The former is cited in the New Testament by the apostle St. Jude. Tradition refers the invention of letters to Enoch, and it is to him that we must therefore trace back the teachings embodied in the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the elementary work of the Kabbalah, its compiler, according to the rabbins, being the patriarch Abraham as their heir of the secrets of Enoch and as the father of initiation in Israel. Enoch would seem in this manner to be identical with the Egyptian Hermes Trismegistus. The famous book of Thoth, written therefore in hieroglyphics and in numbers, would be that occult Bible anterior to the book of Moses and full of mysteries, to which the initiated William Postel alludes so frequently throughout his works under the title of Genesis of Enoch. Okay, so Enoch was Hermes Trismegistus, huh? Fuck, it's all tied into Hermeticism too, bro. What in the shit, bro? We just jam-packed all of this shit into one, bro. We've got fucking, like, what's going on with Kabbalah and Hermes Trismegistus and Jesus, bro. They're all connected. The Bible says that Enoch did not die, but that God translated him from one life to another. He is to return a confound antichrist at the end of time. Wait, whoa. Wait, what? Enoch is the Antichrist? What, did anyone else learn that? The Bible says that Enoch did not die, but that God translated him from one life to another, and that he is to return and confound Antichrist at the end of time. When he be one of the last martyrs or witnesses of truth mentioned in the Apocalypse of St. John, that which is said of Enoch in this respect has been said also of all the great initiators recorded in Kabbalism. St. John himself, according to primitive Christians, was saved from death. It was long thought that he could be seen breathing in his tomb. The explanation is that the absolute science of life preserves against death, as the instinct of the people has always led them to divine. However, this may be the extant memorials of Enoch are contained in 2 books, one of which is hieroglyphic and the other of the nature of allegory. The first comprises of heretic keys of initiation, while the second is the history of great profanation, which caused the destruction of the world and the reign of chaos after the giants. We got giants in here too, bro. What the fuck is this book? I don't know if you guys are really watching a fucking real crash out right now. Like, what the fuck are we reading? Oh, fuck. I gotta take a little break for a second, dude. This is like the first chapter, bro. Saint Methodist, a bishop in the early days of Christianity whose writings are found in the collection of the Fathers of the Church, has left a prophetic apocalypse which unfolds the world's history in a series of visions. It is not included among the saint's acknowledged writings, but it is preserved by the Gnostics and has been printed in the Liber Mirabilis under the assumed name of Bermecubus, which illiterate compositors have substituted in place of Bay Methodist, an abbreviation of Beatus Methodist. This book corresponds in several respects with the allegory treatise entitled The Penance of Adam. It tells how Seth migrated eastward with his family and so reached a mountain in the vicinity of earthly paradise. This was the contrary of initiates, whilst the prosperity of Cain invented a surpious or debased magic in India, the land of fratricide, and put witchcraft into the hands of the reckless. It seems insane, bro. Saint Methodist predicts in a later place the struggles and successive predominance of the Ishmaelites, being the name given in his apocalypse to those who conquered the Romans, of the Franks who overcame the Ishmaelites, and then a great race of the north whose invasion will precede the personal reign of Antichrist. An universal kingdom will be founded thereafter and will fall into the hands of a French prince. Oh no, Macron! President Macron! It's happening. After which there will be a reign of justice for a long period of years. We are not concerned with prophecy in the present place, but it is desirable to note the distinction between good and evil magic, between the sanctuary of sons of Seth and the profanation of science by the descendants of Cain. Wait a second. Let me read that again. Between the sanctuary of sons of Seth and the profanation of science by the descendants of Cain. Does that mean, it's like trust the experts, trust the science. They're trying to use science every day and technology to discredit our connection to source or God or nature or magic. I guess if we're making it applicable to what we're reading. Transcendental knowledge as a fact is reserved for those who are masters of their passions, and virgin nature does not deliver the keys of her nuptial chamber to adulterers. Transcendental magic as a fact is reserved for those who are masters of their passion, and virgin nature does not deliver the keys of her nuptial chamber to adulterers. There are two classes, free men and slaves. Man is born in the bondage of his passions, but he can reach emancipation through intelligence. Between those who are freely already and those who are yet are not there is equally possible. The part of reason is to rule and of instinct to obey. On the other hand, if you impose on the blind the office of leading the blind, both will end in the abyss. We should never forget that liberty does not consist in the license of passion emancipated from law. Dang, bars, right? Bars. We should never forget that liberty does not consist in the license of passion emancipated from the law, which license would prove that most hideous of tyrannies. Liberation consists in willing obedience to law. It is the right to do one's duty, and only just man can be called free. Now, those who are in liberation should govern those who are in bondage. And slaves are called to be released, not from government of the free, but from the yoke of brutal passions, as a consequence of which they cannot exist without masters. Confess with us now, for a moment, to the truth of the transcendental sciences. Suppose that there does actually exist a force which can be mastered, and by which of the mirror. Suppose there does actually exist a force which can be mastered, and by which the miracles of nature are made subservient to the will of man. That sounds like magic to me. Is that magic to you? I do suppose that there is actually a force that can be mastered. Tell us in such case whether the secrets of wealth and the bonds of sympathy can be entrusted to brutal greed, the art of fascination to libertines, the supremacy over others' will to those who cannot attain the government of their proper slaves. It is terrifying to reflect upon the disorders which would follow from such a profanation. Some cataclysm is needed to efface the crimes of earth when all are steeped in the slime and in blood. What the shit? Now, it is this state of things that is indicated by the allegory history of the fall of angels according to the book of Enoch. It is this which is the sin of Adam, and hereof are the fatal consequences. Of such also was the deluge and the wreckage. Of such at a later period of malediction of the maledictation of Canaan. The revelation of occult secrets is typified by the insolence of the son who exposes his father's nakedness. The intoxication of Noah is a lesson for the priesthood of all ages. Woe to those who lay bare the secret of divine generation to the impure gaze of the crowd. What does that mean? It says, woe to those who lay bare the secret of divine generation to the impure gaze of the crowd. It's like, does that mean like, sorry for those people who give the secrets to the impure crowd? Keep the sanctuary shut, all ye who would spare your sleeping father, the mockery of the imitators of Ham. Who the fuck is Ham? Please break down these few sentences for me. The intoxication of Noah is a lesson for the priesthood of all ages. Woe to those who lay bare the secret of divine generation to the impure gaze of the crowd. Keep the sanctuary shut, all ye who would spare your sleeping father, the mockery of the imitators of Ham.
Sure, let me break that down quickly. First, the intoxication of Noah is a lesson for the priesthood of all ages, means Noah getting drunk is seen as a cautionary example for religious leaders throughout history. Next, woe to those who lay bare the secret of divine generation to the impure gaze of the crowd, warns against exposing sacred, spiritual mysteries to people who might not respect or understand them. Finally, keep the sanctuary shut, all ye who would spare your sleeping father, the mockery of the imitators of Ham, advises keeping sacred places protected to avoid bringing shame or ridicule. Using the story of Ham mocking his father Noah as a reference.
It's the creation of these secret societies, bro. This is the foundational work. You know what I'm saying? Can we get some aliens in the chat if you agree, bro? Such is the tradition of the children of Seth, respecting the laws of the human hierarchy, but the latter were not acknowledged by the family of Cain. The Canaanites of India invented a Genesis to consecrate the oppression of the strong and perpetuate the ignorance of the weak. Initiation became an exclusive privilege of the high castes. The entire races of humanity were doomed to unending servitude on the pretense of inferior birth. They issued as it was said from the feet or knees of Brahma. Now, nature engenders neither slaves nor kings. Who pretends that man is perfect at birth but is degraded and perverted by society is the wildest of anarchists. Let's see here. He who pretends that man is perfect at birth, but is degraded and perverted by society is the wildest of anarchists, though he may be the most poetic of maniacs. But in vain was Jean-Jacques, the sentimentalist and dreamer. His deep implicit of misanthropy was explicated by the logic of fanatical partisans bore fruits in hate and destruction. The consistent architects of the utopia imagined by the susceptible philosopher of Geneva were Robespierre and Marat. Society is no abstract personality that can be rendered responsible separately for the stubbornness of man. Society is the association of men. It is defective by reason of their vices and sublime in respect of their virtues. But it itself is holy, like the religion which is bound up, inseparable therewith. Is not religion as most generous endeavors? After this manner does the blasphemy of anti-social equality and of right in the teeth of duty give answer to the lie about caste privileged by nature. Christianity alone has solved the problem by assigning supremacy to self-sacrifice and by proclaiming him as the greatest who offers up his pride for society, his appetites for the sake of law. Though they were the depositories of the tradition of Seth, the Jews did not preserve it in all its purity and were infected by the unjust ambitions of the posterity of Cain. Believing that they were a chosen people, they deemed that God had allotted them the truth. They deemed that God had allotted them truth as a patrimony rather than as a security held in trust for humanity at large. Side by side with the sublime traditions of the Sefer Yetzirah, we meet with very curious revelations among the Talmudists. It's all connected, bro. It's all connected, bro. Can you? It just seems crazy to me, bro. To be 100% honest with you, it's talking about like Cain and Abel and Seth and Jesus and magic and giants and Jews. For example, they do not shrink from ascribing the idolatry of the Gentiles to the patriarch Abraham himself. They say that to the Israelites he bequeathed his inheritance, namely the knowledge of the true divine names. In a word, the Kabbalah was the lawful and hereditary property of Isaac, but the patriarch gave, as they tell us, certain presents to the children of his concubines, and by such presents they understood veiled dogmas and cryptic names which became materialized speedingly and were transformed into idols, false religions and their absurd mysteries, oriental superstitions with all their horrible sacrifices. What a gift from a father to his disowned family. Was it not sufficient to drive Hagar with her son into the desert? To their one loaf and their pitcher of water must he add the burden of falsehood as a torment and poison in their exile? The glory of Christianity is that it called all men to truth without distinction of race and castes, though not with distinction in respect of intelligence and of virtue. Cast not your perils before swine, said the divine founder of Christianity, lest treating them underfoot they turn and rend you. The Apocalypse or Revelation of St. John, which comprises all the Kabbalistic secrets concerning the doctrine of Christ Jesus, is a book no less obscured than the Zohar. It is written hieroglyphically in the language of numbers and images, and the apostle appeals frequently to the knowledge of initiates. Let him understand who has knowledge. Let him who understands compute. He says frequently after reciting an allegory or giving a mystic number. Saint John, the beloved disciple and depository of all the secrets of the Savior, did not therefore write to be understood by the multitude. Of the multitude. The Sefer Yetzirah, the Zohar, and the Apocalypse are the masterpieces of occultism. They contain more meaning than words. Their method of expression is figurative like poetry and exact like numerical formula. The Apocalypse summarizes, completes, and surpasses all the science of Abraham and Solomon, as we will prove by explaining the keys of the transcendent Kabbalah. It is not less astonishing to observe at the beginning of the Zohar the profundity of its notions and the sublime simplicity of its images. It is said as follows: the science of equilibrium is the key to occult science. Unbalanced forces perish in the world. So pass the kings under the elder world, the princes of giants. They have fallen like trees without roots, and their place is found no more. Through the conflict of unbalanced forces, the devastated earth was void and formless until the Spirit of God made for himself a place in heaven and reduced the mass of waters. All the aspirations of nature were directed then towards unity of form, towards the living synthesis of the equilibrated forces. The face of God, crowned with light, rose over the vast sea and was reflected in the waters thereof. His two eyes were manifested, radiating with splendor, darting two beams of light which crossed with those of the reflection. The brow of God and his eyes formed a triangle in heaven. See, it's all sacred geometry, bro. Why would he form it's trigonometry? Sacred trigonometry. Crazy. The brow of God and his eyes formed a triangle in heaven, and its reflection formed a second triangle in the waters. So was revealed the number 6, being that of universal creation. I don't know who's here, bro, but this shit is kind of crazy. Yes? No? The text, which would be unintelligible in a literal version, is translated here by way of interpretation. The author makes it plain that the human form which he ascribes to deity is only an image of his meaning, and that God is beyond expression by human thought or representation by any figure. Pascal said that God is a circle, of which the center is everywhere and the circumference nowhere. But how is one to imagine a circle apart from its circumference? The Zohar adopts the antithesis of this paradoxical image in respect of the circle of Pascal would say rather that the circumference is everywhere, while that which is nowhere is the center. It is, however, to a balance and not to a circle that it compares the universal equilibrium of things. Crazy. What the shit are we tapping into, bro? What the shit are we tapping into? The Kabbalistic symbol of the Zohar. It affirms that equilibrium is everywhere, and so also is that center point where the balance hangs in suspension. We find that the Zohar is thus more forcible and more profound than Pascal. The author continues as follows his sublime dream. That synthesis of the word formulated by the human figure ascended slowly and emerged from the water like the sun in its rising. When the eyes appeared, light was made. When the mouth was manifested, there was the creation of spirits, and the word passed into expression. The entire head was revealed, and this completed the first day of creation. The shoulders, the arms, the breast arose, and thereupon work began. With one hand, the divine image put back the sea, while with the other hand it raised up continents and mountains. The image grew and grew. The generative organs appeared, and all beings began to increase and multiply. The form stood at length erect, having 1 foot upon the earth and 1 upon the waters, beholding itself at the full length in the ocean of creation. It breathed on its own reflection and called its likeness into life. It said, "Let us make men," and thus man was made. There is nothing so beautiful in the masterpiece of any poet as this vision of creation accomplished by the prototype of humanity. Hereby is man but the shadow of a shadow, and yet he is the image of divine power. He also can stretch forth his hands from east to west. To him is the earth given as a dominion. Such is Adam Kadamon, the premortal Adam of the Kabbalists. Kadamon? Weird. Who's anybody heard this, bro? Anyone heard the Kadamon is Adam's name to the Kabbalists? Such is the sense in which he is depicted as a giant. And this is why Swedenborg, haunted in his dreams by reminiscence of the Kabbalah, says that the entire creation is only a titanic man, and that we are made in the image of the universe. The Zohar is the genesis of light. The Sefer Yetzirah is the ladder of truth. Therein are expounded the 32 absolute symbols of speech, being numbers and letters. Each letter produces a number, an idea, and a form, so that mathematics are applicable to forms and ideas, even as to the numbers, in virtue of the exact proportion and a perfect correspondence. By the science of the Sefer Yetzirah, the human mind is rooted in truth and in reason. It accounts for all progress possible to intelligence by means of the evolution of numbers. Thus does the Zohar represent absolute truth, while the Sefer Yetzirah furnishes the method of its acquisition, its discernment, and application. Oh my goodness, bro. Gematria, bro. We're on page 99. Do you guys want to keep reading? Magic of the Magi. I think it's got Hermes right here. Aristotle. Thoth. Do you guys want to keep reading? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat, bro, because I'm going to have to come up over here, bro. I'm gonna have to show you something over here, bro. Exactly what he's fucking talking about, bro. It equals 170. All of these letters attribute to a certain number. Whoever comments the most poop emojis in the next 30 seconds, I'll put their name inside of here. Crazy. We'll do, watch this. Scruff. 73. Queen. Trip. 125. Monica. 55. Trevor. 98. Julia. 53. Melissa. 78. Sauron. 88. Kimberly. 95. It's connected to everything, bro. There's numbers everywhere, bro. There's numbers everywhere, bro. The history of magic, everybody. Okay. Water Woman Kimberly. Let's see. We'll do this for you, Kimberly. $228. Can we all acknowledge that letters connect to words? I mean, to numbers. It's pretty insane, right? So we have, I mean, not only are we like trying, we're like, this book is insane, bro. It's insane, right? Like, it's not just me sitting here like reading every page going, what the fuck am I reading? What the fuck is this? What have we discovered, bro? It is within probability that Zoroaster is the symbolical name like that of Thoth or Hermes. According to the Exodus and Aristotle, he flourished 6,000 years before the birth of Plato. But others say that he has annotated the siege of Troy by about 500 years. He is sometimes represented as a king of the Bactrians, but the existence of 2 or 3 distinct Zoroasters is also one of the speculations. Check this out. Ready for this? You ready for this? Isn't Zoroastrianism the oldest religion on planet Earth?
From what I found, Zoroastrianism is indeed among the oldest surviving religions, often cited as the oldest monotheistic faith. It originated more than 3,000 years ago. However, the question of the oldest religion overall is complex.
It's old. Zoroastrianism. That's who they're talking about. Zoroaster. Exodus and Aristotle alone would seem to have realized that his personality was magic, and this is why they have placed the Kabbalistic epoch of an entire world between the birth of his doctrine and the Thurgic reign of Platonic philosophy. As a fact, there are 2 Zoroasters, that is to say, 2 expounders of mystery, one being the son of Ormuzd and the founder of enlightened instruction, and the other being the son of Abraham, Rahman, and the author of the profanatory unveiling of truth. Zoroaster is the incarnate word of the Chaldeans, the Medes, and the Persians. His legend reads like a prophecy concerning that of Christ. And hence it must be assumed that he had also his Antichrist in accordance with the magical law and universal equilibrium. So is that like the law of polarity? Is that what he's talking about? It's like Hermetic principles talking about the law of correspondence and the law of polarity in their wording as the magical law of universal equilibrium. To the false Zoroaster must be referred to cultists of material fire, and that impious impious doctrine of divine dualism, which produced at a later period the monstrous gnosis of Manes and the false principles of Serpius Masonry. We got Freemasons in here too, bro. The Zoroaster in question was the father of the materialized magic, which led to the massacre of the Magi and brought their true doctrine at first into prescription and then oblivion. That's crazy. The Zoroastrians destroyed the magic, bro. The ancient Irish, the Atlanteans. I don't know what you've been told, bro. But my brain is vibrating, dude. We got fucking the Kabbalah in here. We got Masonry in here. We got Jesus in here. We got magic in here. We got fucking giants in here. Ever inspired by the spirit of truth, the church was compelled to condemn under the names of magic, Manichaeism, Illuminism, and Masonry. All that was in kinship, remote and approximate, with the primitive profanation of the mysteries. I'm sure of it. Thank you, Water Woman Kimberly. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to join the stream where everybody's at, there is a link pinned to the top of the YouTube chat that will take you to Kick. Kick is just another streaming platform that cares about its content creators and gives their content creators more money than the other platforms. Basically, there's no ads. There's no nothing. Everything that's made on Kick, the subscriptions, is all just from the lovely, generous place in your heart. Kick's where it's at. Kick's where everybody is. YouTube only has, I'm thinking, like one person. They're saying on YouTube that Facebook is freezing up because we're fucking talking about some crazy shit, bro. Are we not? Are we not talking? This book is talking about some crazy shit. All that was in kinship, remote or approximate, with the primitive profanation of the mysteries. One signal example is the history of the Knights Templar, which has been misunderstood to this day. The doctrines of the true Zoroaster are identical with those of pure Kabbalism, and his conceptions of divinity differ in no wise from those of the fathers of the church. It is those names only that vary. For example, the triad of Zoroaster is the trinity of Christian teaching. And when he postulates the triad as subsiding without diminution or division in each of its units, he is expressing in another manner that which is understood by our theologians as the circumcision of the divine person. The circumcision of the divine person. In his multiplication of the triad by itself, Zoroaster arrives at the absolute reason of the number 9 and the universal key of all numbers and forms. But those whom we term the three divine persons are called the three depths of Zoroaster. The first, or that of the Father, is the source of faith. The second, being that of the Word, is the well of truth, while the third, or creative action, is the front of love. Oh, let me read that one more time. The first of this Zoroaster triad, which this book is connecting to the Holy Trinity of Christianity. The first is that of the Father, is the source of faith. The second, being that of the Word, is the well of truth, while the third, or creative action, is the front of love. To check where is here advanced, the reader may consult the commentary of Pacellus on the doctrine of the ancient Assyrians. It may be found in the work of Franciscus Petrus on philosophical magic, page 24 of the Hamburg edition, which appeared in 1593. Zoroaster established the celestial hierarchy and all the harmonies of nature on his scale of 9 degrees. He explains by the means of the triad whosoever inanimates from the idea, and by the tetrad all that belongs to form, thus arriving at the number 7 as the type of creation. There's the number 7 again. The number 7 has been following me ever since I watched Bible Unveiled, bro. Here ends the first initiation and the scholastic hypothesis begin. Numbers are personified and ideas passed into emblems, which at a later period became idols. The Sanokis, the Teltriarch, and the fathers, ministers of the triple Hecate. Wait a second. Hecate. 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 Where have I seen Hecate? Hecate. 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 What about Jesus Hecate? Come on, bring it up here. There's some Jesus ones I want to show you. Sorry, dealing with my kids again. She is the goddess of the underworld, but there were some Jesus ones, bro. There were some Jesus ones. I gotta find it. I gotta pull it up in my phone. I gotta show you the Jesus ones. I did a little video of it. Little video of it. We can actually go on YouTube right here, actually, and find it on my shorts. Right here, ready? Boom, hit Tripoverdrip. Boom, come up over here to shorts. Boom, I'll be able to pull it up right when I see it. Right here. Yeah, right here. Whoa, let me pause this up.
Come outside.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Where'd it go?
Come out.
Right here. How do I mute this? Mute it. Right here. I love you. Boom, right there. Hecate Jesus. Hecate Jesus. Hecate Jesus. Hecate Jesus. Just wanted to show you that. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry for my little tangent for Hecate Jesus. But that's where I heard the old Hecate. Hecate. The three Amalekites and the threefold vistage of Hypesokastos. Let's actually ask that real quick. How does Hecate relate to Pluto?
Hecate and Pluto, also known as Hades in Greek myth, are connected through their roles in the underworld. Pluto is the ruler of the underworld and husband to Persephone, while Hecate is a chthonic goddess associated with magic, witchcraft, and liminal spaces, often serving as a guide or companion in the underworld. Sources suggest that Hecate may have been an earlier ruler of the underworld, and she's often linked to Persephone and Demeter, forming a supporting triad in myths about the underworld. While Hecate doesn't directly rule alongside Pluto, she has a close association with the underworld and its deities.
Interesting. She's like Hecate is like Hades. All these intervene. The angels follow in their order, the demons, and lastly, human souls. The stars are images and reflections of intellectual splendors. The material sun is an emblem of the sun of truth, which itself is a shadow of that first source whence all glory springs. This is why the disciples of Zoroaster saluted the rising day and so passed as sun worshippers among barbarians. Yep, the Amalekites. The blood lickers. You're right. The Khazarian Mafia. That's going to be a term that gets me flagged. Fuck you. The blood lickers. Such were the doctrines of the Magi, but they were the possessors in addition of secrets which gave them mastery over the occult powers of nature. The sum of these secrets might be termed transcendental pyrotechny, for it is intimately related to the deep knowledge of fire and its ruling. It is certain that the Magi were not only familiar with electricity, but were able to generate and direct it in ways that are unknown. Numa, who studied their rites and was initiated into their mysteries, possessed, and according to Lucius Pison, the art of producing and controlling the lightning. This sacerdotal secret, which the Roman initiator would have reserved to the king of Rome, was lost by Tullus Hostilius, who mismanaged the electrical discharge and was destroyed. Pliny relates these facts on the authority of an ancient Etruscan tradition and mentions that Numa directed his battery with success against a monster named Volta, which was ravaging the district about Rome. Wait a second. Can you please tell me the story of Numa directing his battery towards a monster named Volta?
Sure, I want to clarify. It sounds like you're referring to an event or story involving characters named Numa and Volta.
In Rome, yes.
Got it. You're asking about Numa Pompilius, the legendary second king of Rome. He was known for establishing many religious and cultural institutions. I'm not aware of a story where he directs a battery toward a monster named Volta.
I'm literally reading it from the History of Magic written in 1913 on page 55. It says Numa directed his battery with success against a monster named Volta, which was ravaging the district about Rome.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you're reading a historical account from a book written in 1913.
A historical account. Did you hear that? He said it himself. Fuck you, Perplexity. A historical account. Not a fabricated account. Not a fucking conspiracy. A historical account. In reading this story, one is almost tempted to think that Volta, the discoverer, is himself a myth, and that the name of Voltic piles goes back to the days of Numa. All Assyrian symbols connect with this science of fire, which was the great secret of the Magi. On every side, we meet with the enchanter who slays the lion and controls the serpents. The lion is the celestial fire, while the serpents are the electrical and magnetic currents of the earth. To this same great secret of the Magi are referable all marvels of hermetic magic. What in the fuck? I'm telling you, I never read nothing like this in my entire life, bro. Like, I feel like I've been learning about all sorts of things over the last few years, and I'm like reading a book that talks about all of it. It seems crazy to me. The extant traditions of which still bear witness that the mystery of the great work consists in the ruling of fire. The learned patrician, the learned Patrictius, published in his philosophical magic, the oracles of Zoroaster, collected from the works of Platonic writers, from Proclus on Thurgy, from the commentaries on the Parmenides, commentaries of Hermias on the Phaedrus, and from the notes of Olympodorus on the Philebus and the Phadion. These oracles are firstly a clear and precise formulation of the doctrine here stated, and secondly a prescriptions of magical ritual expressed in such terms as follows: demons and sacrifice. Bro, are you guys ready for this? You guys are like in real time catching a freaking download, bro. It's kind of crazy. Like, I keep saying this, bro, because I'm actually genuinely I'll tell you the truth, bro. We read the introduction, bro, the introduction to this book, and it was so hard for me to like fully grasp what was being said, but I'm understanding way more in this first chapter, bro. This is the first chapter, bro. Or first book out of 7 in this book. There's a number 7 again. We are taught by induction from nature that there are incorporeal demons, and that the germs of evil which exist in matter turn to the common good and utility. But these are mysteries which must be buried in the recess of thought. Forever agitated and ever leaping in the atmosphere, the fire can assume a configuration like that of bodies. Let us go further and affirm the existence of a fire which abounds in images and reflections. Term it, if you will, as supra-abundant light, which radiates. Let me say that again. Term it, if you will, a superabundant light which radiates, which speaks, which goes back into itself. It is the flaming courser of light, or rather it is the stalwart child who overcomes and breaks in that heavenly steed. Picture him as a vested flame and emblazoned with gold, or think of him naked as love and bearing arrows of Eros. By if thy meditation prolongeth itself, thou wilt combine all these emblems under the form of the lion. Thereafter, when things are no longer visible, when the vault of heaven and the expanse of the universe have dissolved, when the stars have ceased to shine and the lamp of the moon is veiled, when the earth trembles and the lightning plays around, invoke not the visible phantom of nature's soul, for thou must be in no wise behold it until thy body has been purified by the holy ordeals. Enervators of souls, which they distract from sacred occupations, the dog-faced demons issue from the confines of matter and expose to mortal eyes the semblances of illusionary bodies, labor round the circles described by the rhombus of Hecate. Change thou nothing in this barbarous names of evocation, for they are pantheistic titles of God. They are magnetized by the devotion of multitudes, and their power is ineffable. When after all the phantoms thou shalt behold the shining of that incorporeal fire. Incorporeal. I want to know what that word means. It keeps saying it. What does the word incorporeal mean? When it, like, let's say it's incorporeal fire.
The word incorporeal means having no material body or physical form, essentially something immaterial or bodiless.
Incorporeal. Incorporeal. Shalt behold the shinings of that incorporeal fire, that sacred fire that darts of which penetrate in every direction through the depths of the world. Hearken the words of the fire. These astonishing sentences, which are taken from the Latin of Patricus, embody the secrets of magnetism and of things far deeper, which it is not entered into the heart of the people like Dupotent. I thought I said DuPont right there. I was about to trip the fuck out. And Mesmer to conceive. We find A, the astral light described perfectly together with its power of producing fluidic forms, of reflecting language and echoing voice, the will of the adept signified by the stalwart child mounted on a white horse, a symbol met with an ancient tarot card, preserved in the Bibliothèque Nationale. Bibliothèque Nationale. Isn't that kind of crazy right there when it says, though? We find the astral light described perfectly together with its power of producing fluidic forms, of reflecting language and echoing the voice. It's like right there, it's telling us that creation is all light and vibration, bro. Maybe that's just me reading too much into it. The dangers of hallucination arising from misdirected magical work. The raison d'être, I don't know, I think that's how it says, of enchantments accomplished by the use of barbarous names and words, the magnetic instrument termed rhombos, which is comparable to the child's humming top, the term of magical practice, which is the stilling of imagination and of the senses into the state of complete somnambulism and perfect lucidity. It follows from this revelation of the ancient world that clairvoyant exists is a voluntary and immediate application of the soul to the universal fire, or rather to that light abounding in images which radiates, which speaks and circulates above all objects in every sphere of the universe. This application is operated by the persistence of will liberated from the senses and fortified by the succession of tests. Herein consisted the beginning of the magical initiation. Having obtained the power of direct reading in the light, the adept became a seer or prophet. Then, having established communication between this light and his own will, he learned to direct the former, even as the head of an arrow is set in a certain direction. He communicated at his pleasure either strife or peace to the souls of other. He established intercourse at a long distance with those fellow adepts whose were his peers, and in fine, he availed himself of that force which is represented by the celestial lion. Crazy. I'm gathering right here. It's basically saying that clairvoyance is real, and that once you see the light and then add your own intention and your will, you can then communicate your pleasure or peace to the souls of others. That's interesting. Herein lies the meaning of those great Assyrian figures which hold vanquished lions in their arms. The astral light is otherwise represented by gigantic sphinxes, having the bodies of lions and the head of a magi. Wait a second. You're telling me that the Sphinx in Egypt that potentially had a different head put on it could potentially have been a statue of the Magi, considered as an instrument made subject to magical power? The astral light is that golden sword of Mithra used in his emulation of the sacred bull, and it is the arrow of Fabius who pierced the serpent Python. Mithra. Wait a second. Mithra? Do we have to do this again? Mithras? You're talking about Mithras? This god? That's right outside of our country? Mithras. Oh, you don't believe me? Okay, we'll just go back and we'll just look at Mithras, okay? We'll just look at Mithras, sure, whatever. You can say that it's not this thing. You could say that, that's fine. Give me some images of Mithras. It's not, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, Mithras with the bolt killing the bull. It's got the serpent and the dog. You know. Oh yeah, there he is. There it is. There's the ancient Mithras looking like motherfucking Statue of Liberty. You know. Let us now reconstruct in thought the great metropolitan cities of Assyria, Babylon, and Nevaeh. Let us restore to their proper place the granite colossi. Let us formulate the massive temples held up by elephants and sphinxes. Let us raise once more those obelisks from which dragons look down with shining eyes and wings outspread. What the fuck? Dragons too, bro? Temples and places tower above these wondrous piles, forever concealed, but manifested also ever by the fact of their miracles. The priesthood and the royalty, like visible divinities of earth, abide therein. The temple is surrounded with clouds or glows within supernatural brilliance at the wall of the priest. Now it is dark in the daylight, and again the night is enlightened. The lamps of the temple spring themselves into flame. The gods are radiant. The thunder rolls, and woe to the impious person who may have invoked on his own head the maledictation of initiates. The temples protect the places, and the king's retainers do battle for the religion of the Magi. The monarch himself is sacred. He is a god on earth. The people lie prone as he passes. The maniac who would attempt to cross the threshold of his palace died immediately by the intervention of the invisible hand, and without stroke of mace or sword. He is slain as if by the bolt, blasted by the fire from heaven. What religion and what power! How mighty are the shadows of Nimrod, Belus, and Semiramis. What can surpass these almost fabulous cities with such mighty royalties were enthroned, these capitals of giants, capitals of magicians, of personalities identified by tradition with angels and still termed sons of gods or princes of heaven? What mysteries have been put to sleep in those sculptures of our past nations? And are we better than the children when we exalt our enlightenment and our progress without recalling those startling memorials? In his work on magic, M. Dupotet affirms with a certainty that it is possible to overwhelm a living being by a current magnetic fluid. Wait a second. Affirms with a certain timidity that it is possible to overwhelm a living being by a current of magnetic fluid. Magical power extends beyond this limit, but is not confined within the measures of a putative magnetic fluid. The astral light as a whole, that element of electricity, of lightning, can be placed at the deposition of human will. What must be done, however, to acquire this formidable power? Zoroaster has just told us we must know those mysterious laws of equilibrium which subjugate the very powers of evil to the empire of good. We must have purified our bodies by sacred trials, must have conquered the phantoms of a hallucination and taken hold boldly of the light. Imitating Jacob in his struggle with the angel, we must have vanquished those fantastic dogs which howl in the world of dreams. In a world, and to use the forcible expression of the oracle, we must have heard the light speak. When we are then its masters and can direct it, as Numa did, against the enemies of the holy mysteries. But if in the absence of perfect purity, and if under the government of some animal passion by which we are still subjugated to the fatalities of the tempestuous life, we proceed to this kind of work, the fire which will kindle and will consume ourselves. Crazy. Wait, but if in the absence of perfect purity, and if under the government of some animal passion by which we are still subjugated to the fatalities of the tempestuous life, we proceed to this kind of work, the fire which will kindle will consume ourselves. We shall fall victims to the serpent which we unloose, and shall perish like Talus Hostilicis. It is not in the conformity with the laws of nature for man is to be devoured by wild beasts. God has armed him with the power of resistance. His eyes can fascinate them, his voice restrain, his sign bring them to pause. We know indeed as a literal fact that the most savage animals quail before a steady human glance and seem to tremble at a human voice. What? It's pretty crazy to hear, actually, because there is like some sort of, I don't know, how do you say? There's a power that us humans have, like a specific power in this realm that we live in, this Earth planet that we reside in. We have some sort of, I don't want to say superiority. I don't want to say that word because then a lot of people think that if, because humans have a superiority complex and they think that we're the ones that are ruling the planet, that we just have the ability to just cut down the trees and destroy the planet and kill all the animals. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. The explanation is that they are paralyzed and awestrucken by the projection of astral light. What? That's kind of, we're just sitting here thinking about it. The explanation is that they are paralyzed and awestrucken by the projections of the astral light. So like they are starstruck when they see the resemblance of God. Does that kind of makes crazy sense, right? When Daniel was accused of impostor and false magic, both he and his accusers were subjected by the king of Babylon to the ordeal of lions. Such beasts attack those only who fear them, or whom would they themselves afraid. It is utterly certain that the tiger will recede before the magnetic glance of a brave man, although the latter may be disarmed. The Magi utilized this power, and the kings of Assyria kept tigers, leopards, and lions in their garden in a state of docility. Isn't that true? We are stewards to the earth. That's what I believe. I agree with you, Scruffmeister, that the human race has been put on planet Earth to be stewards to this beautiful garden that we live inside. because it really is a garden. But it's kind of crazy to think about. Really, if you go back to like these tales of emperors or rulers, they have lots of imagery of like big cats like around them, like Cleopatra, right? Isn't she like connected with like had a leopard or like a jaguar or something? But it does make sense. The Magi, also, I'll read it again. The Magi utilized this power, and the kings of Assyria kept tigers, leopards, and lions in their garden. Others were reserved in vaults beneath the temple for the use in the ordeals of initiation. The symbolic bas reliefs are the proof. They depict trials of strength between man and animal, and the adept, clothed in his priestly garb, controls the brutes by a glance of his eye and stays them with his hand. When such animals are depicted in one of the forms ascribed to the Sphinx, they are doubtless symbolical, but in other representations, the brute is of natural order, and then the struggle seems to illustrate a theory of actual enchantment. Magic is a science. To abuse it is to lose it, and it is also to destroy oneself. The kings and the priests of the Assyrian world were too great to be free from this danger. If ever they fall, as a fact, pride did come upon them, and they did therefore fall. Who do we got up in here? You guys still here? If you're here, can you just say hi? Maybe drop your location. Maybe just put some Team Humans in the chat. It does make that... This last line really just actually hit me. Magic is a science. To abuse it is to lose it, and it is also to destroy one's self. The kings and priests of the Assyrian world were far too great to be free from this danger. If they ever fall, as a fact, pride did come upon them, and they did therefore fall. The great magical epoch of Chaldea is anterior to the reigns of Semiramis and Ninus. At this time, religion had begun already to materialize and idolatry to prevail. The cultus of Astarte succeeded that of the heavenly Venus, and royalty aggregated to itself divine attributes under the names of Baal or Bel or Belsus. There's the ball. We're playing ball now. We're up in here. Shit, my dude. At this time, religion had begun to already materialize and idolatry to prevail. The cultus of Astarte succeeded that of the heavenly Venus, and royalty aggregated to itself divine attributes under the names of Baal. Demetrius made religion subservient to politics and conquest, replacing the old mysterious temples by ostentatiousness and ill-advised monuments. Now, this notwithstanding, the magical idea continued to prevail in art and science, sealing the constructions of the epoch of the characteristics of inimitable power and grandeur. The palace of Semiramis was a building synthesis of entire Zoroastrianism dogma, and we shall recur to it in explaining the symbolism of those 7 masterpieces of antiquity which are called the wonders of the world. The priesthood became secondary to the empire as a result of an attempt to materialize its own power. The fall of the one was bound to involve the other, and it came to pass under the Effemente Sardinia what the fuck, bro? Sardanapalus, this prince, abandoned to luxury and indolence, reduced the science of the Magi to the level of one of his courtesans. Which purpose did marvels serve if they failed to, in misistration of pleasure, compel, O chanters, compel the winter to produce roses, double the savor of wine, apply your power over the light to make the beauty of a woman shine that of divinities. The Magi obeyed, and the king passed from intoxication to intoxication. But it came about that war was declared, and that the enemy was already on the march. That enemy might signify little to the Sabriate steeped in his pleasure, but it was ruin, it was infamy, it was death. Now Sardanapalus Sardanapalus did not fear death, since for him it was an endless sleep, and he knew how to avoid the toils and humiliations of servitude. The last night came. The victor was already upon the threshold. The city could stand out no longer. The kingdom of Assyria must end on the morrow. The place of Sardanapalus was illuminated and blazed with such splendor that it lightened all the concentrated city. Amidst piles of precious stuffs, amidst jewels and the golden vessels of the king, held his final orgy. His women, his favorites, his accomplishments, his accomplices, his degenerate priests surrounded him. The riot of drunkenness mingled with the music of 1,000 instruments. The tame lions roared. A smoke of perfumes going up from the vaults of the palace enveloped the whole edifice in a heavy cloud. But the tongues of fire began to penetrate the cedar paneling. The frenzied songs were replaced by cries of terror and groans of agony. The magic in the hands of its degraded adepts could not safeguard the empire of Ninus. Did at least mingle its marvels to emblazon the terrible memories of this titanic suicide, a vast and sinister splendor such as the night of Babylon had never seen, seemed suddenly to set back and enlarge the vault of heaven. A noise like all the thunders of the world pealing together shook the earth, and the walls of the city collapsed. Thereafter, a deeper night descended. The palace of Sardanapalus melted, and when the morrow came, his conqueror found no trace of his riches, no trace even of the king's body or any of his luxuries. So ended the first empire of Assyria, and the civilization founded of the old by a true Zoroastrian. Thus also ended magic, properly so called, and the reign of Kabbalah began. Abraham, on coming out of Chaldea, carried its mysteries with him. The people of God increased in silence, and we shall meet before long with Daniel, confounding the miserable incanters of Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. Chapter 3. We're getting into that on Wednesday, bro.